Welcome back to Hydroponics Daily. Today's topic is nitrogen. Nitrogen is essential for all life on Earth because it's in all proteins. So proteins are very important. They are a number of enzymes. They have numerous functions in plants and humans. And so without nitrogen and nitrogen fertilizers, you limit the amount of growth you can get. So amino acids, the amine refers to the nitrogen in the amino acid, and proteins are made up of amino acids. So there's no proteins in plants without nitrogen. The main protein in plants is something called rubisco, and that's required for fixing carbon dioxide out of the air. Without rubisco, there would be no life on Earth. So nitrogen, very important. Also, nitrogen is a key component of the chlorophyll molecule. So nitrogen is required for photosynthesis from that perspective, for the pigment that harnesses the energy from light and transfers it down the electron chain. And without enough nitrogen, you get symptoms of deficiency. The good thing is that the symptoms of deficiency of nitrogen are easy to spot. Problem is they're quite common as well. First thing you'll get is chlorosis of the older leaves, as seen here in my amazing diagram. The older leaves go yellow. You'll see this on many crops that are, if you haven't fed them for a long time. And the reason they go yellow, well, they don't really go yellow. For a start, the green is removed, revealing the background pigments that are yellow. So going yellow is not referred to in science. We say chlorosis because it's the removal of the green, and the underlying carotenoids, the yellowy orange pigments, are revealed. That's because the nitrogen's been moved to the younger developing parts of the plant. Plants can do that easily, and so that's why the lower leaves go yellow and then they die off. You'll also get stunted growth because simply without nitrogen there won't be enough nutrition for growth, and because nitrogen is the nutrient that's required in the highest amount, then it's going to be limited most often. There's plenty of nitrogen in gold leaf, or in the UK, liquid gold, and it's in two forms. It's as nitrate and as ammonium, NH4 and NO3. That's important because both forms of nitrogen are required for healthy crops with good yield. If you apply just nitrates, as in some fertilizers do, you get excessive leggy growth and too much of ammonium, and it's harder for the plant to absorb it. You don't want nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas is useless for plants. They don't have the mechanisms and the ability to take nitrogen from the air and to convert it, fix it, as it's called, into a form that can be useful. Only bacteria can do that. So you'll hear of legumes fixing nitrogen. It's actually the bacteria in their roots that do that. Some free-living bacteria can do it, but they're not as good as legumes. And so you want either nitrates or ammonium. You don't want nitrites, which is the one in the middle where they're converted to. This happens in cold soils. When your soil's too cold or your grow media is too cold, you get conversion between them to this NO2 minus, because the bacteria that do this shifting don't work in cold, don't go all the way in cold conditions, and nitrites are poisonous to plants. So that's a problem of adding nitrogen fertilizer to cold soil. That's one of the disadvantages of growing outdoors, is that you get the formation of poisonous nitrites if you try and fertilize your soil in the cold. There are other sources of nitrogen. Amino acids can be applied directly to plants and absorbed, and they can absorb amino acids. It used to be thought that they can't, but the research in Alaska and the Arctic shows that they could, when this is an important source of nitrogen up there in the really cold areas. And some plants can absorb nitrogen from pollution in the air, so nitrogen oxides, nitrogen dioxides. However, this is not all plants, and also it will represent a tiny proportion of all the nitrogen available to the plant. Definitely don't want to rely on it, even if you're in an urban area with lots of pollution. Nitrogen will always be the highest value on a base fertilizer. If it's not, something's gone wrong, and it's certainly the highest by concentration nutrient in gold leaf, or in the UK, liquid gold. And that's because we definitely don't want any deficiencies or reductions in nitrogen use. Anything that you think I've missed on nitrogen? You can apply too much nitrogen. Plants can absorb luxury amounts. So things like nettles, they can absorb more nitrogen than they actually need. and it doesn't actually increase growth. And if you apply too much, then you might get symptoms of toxicity. However, they're rare. It's hard to overdose on nitrogen alone. Other nutrients, it's easier. They don't have as much of an osmotic effect. The real issue is you're going to stimulate algal growth in your feed if you apply too much, and it's going to be a source of pollution to waterways especially if you're using a run to waste system. Nitrogen going into waterways should always be avoided. And for this reason, whenever I'm growing hydroponically, I tend to, if I've got waste runoff, then I just put that on my garden or my lawn. It's a waste of fertilizer, and it also prevents that pollution going into the water system and having to be removed. So always be a environmentally friendly grower even when you're growing hydroponically. That's been Hydroponic Daily. Nitrogen. On to the next nutrient next, probably phosphorus, I would imagine. Thank you.